punk star, and you grew up on punk. And what was it like being involved in the DIY punk scene in Washington State?
It was like living in a crazy bubble. I was also a kid, so didn't need to think about everyday concerns like paying bills. But to me, it was all music, all art. It felt like, that was the only thing that mattered. And it wasn't just about stuff that sounded punk in the traditional way, although that was super relevant. But it was like people gathered together to make really interesting experimental music that was fun and gather. There's venues that serve vegan meals for free with the donation when you got in, and it was definitely a community-based music experimentation kind of bubble in Seattle in the 2000s that I participated in. I remember seeing bands like Talbot Tagora and Sexvid. It was just really cool.
And so did you start out playing guitar?
Yeah, I've been playing guitar since I was 12. My dad and mom gave me my mom's guitar from when she was a kid when I was 12. And I just started playing and eventually got an electric guitar. But I always wanted to be in bands from the minute I was able to think about it. I wanted to be the singer and guitar player for a band.
Yeah, when did you start singing and making vocals?
When I was 15, I started a band called Hair Jazz, Herr Jazz. And it was like, we were really influenced by like the Smell in Los Angeles, the like punk scene around this venue called the Smell. Like wacky, noisy pop kind of guitar playing, but played at a punk speed.
Very like avant-garde stuff.
It was weird. We were definitely like heavily influenced by Abe Vigoda, No Age, Talbot Tagora, Mika Miko, bands like that.
Awesome. What were some of your early influences musically?
I just listed some, but a lot of it was that local Seattle, Olympia, Washington State music was just so big for me growing up. I loved all the bands in my scene. One of them is really important, but I won't mention it because the guy in the band turned out to be scum, but Talbot Tagora, Bow and Arrow, The Last Slice of Butter, Sea House, bands on K Records, from Olympia from the 90s, Sub Pop bands. I just loved Washington State music, but outside of that, the Germs really changed my thinking around. Rancid was important. There's a local band called The Pharmacy. And then in high school, I heard The Pack, Soulja Boy, Gucci Mane were my three favorite rap artists in high school, and all that music was really important too.
Cool. And so your involvement in the punk scene in Seattle, I'm assuming you got a lot of connections from that. So then you originally joined Thrax House as a booking agent?
Yeah, it's really funny actually. I got co-signed to MacNed through this music writer in the city who knew me from rock stuff. And Thrax House was trying to book punk shows, was trying to just do something way different. We also just had trouble getting booked in the clubs in Seattle, so they were having trouble before I joined. And I joined, helped them set up a West Coast tour originally, the tour was going to be MFK, Marcy Main, Black Cray, Kenayada, and MacNed. And I think the Goth Money dudes ended up going on tour with Young Lean, so it was just a Thrax House tour down the West Coast. I booked them Portland, Seattle, Stockton, Oakland, and I helped with LA.
So
it's really funny.
So when you joined Thrax House, you really had no intention of making music with them?
No, I was interested in learning how to make techno and like electronic music, noisy shit. I was already making, like industrial noise.
And so you were working on that, and then can you talk about Neurotic?
Yeah, totally. Neurotic is a song by Young Bro, which is the former alias of Lil Tracy. And it was the first song I produced, as a producer. It was an accident. So I booked that Thrax House tour, and I moved to LA with my then girlfriend, and we were staying in her grandparents' giant house in the Hollywood Hills. There's no one there but us. So, when everybody got there to LA on the tour, like everyone from Thrax House was there. It was like the first time a lot of people were meeting. Yawns and Dot Cult came out from Phoenix, and we were all at my ex-girlfriend's house, and I met Tracy, and we got along good, but he spent the night, and he asked to use my laptop, and I had recorded these like piano loops to use on techno songs later with just a Casio, which weirdly enough was given to me by Spencer Clark from a band called The Skaters, and I think he used to belong to James Ferraro, something like that. Crazy keyboard. And I woke up the next morning and Tracy was sitting on the porch, and we lived in the basement. You open a glass sliding door, and he was out on the porch with the laptop smoking, and I walked out in my underwear and sat down with him, and he's like, "Here, bro." Puts the earphones in my ears, and I was like, this is so crazy. It sounded like Coil. I thought it sounded like a pop Coil song or something like that, or Animal Collective, and I was like, I had heard about this guy, Young Bro. I was like, thought he was a rapper. And I was like, if this is what's happening, like, I actually have something I want to contribute. And I was just shocked by how cool and experimental it was. So that was like my first song. You can still listen to that song. It's on SoundCloud.
And Spotify too.
Oh yeah, it's on Spotify now too.
And you said that's like one of the most important songs.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most important songs. Like, that night changed my whole focus from, you know, making techno only to, oh, I want to make beats for vocalists. I wasn't thinking I want to make trap beats or rap beats or any type of beat, but it was more like, I want to make beats for people to vocalize on.
And so what's interesting to me is that you are kind of known for like making these emo influenced beats, but you never really grew up on that.
I like some emo, but never the style of emo that was getting referenced on the beats. It's funny, my beats aren't emo really. They're like, it's just a different style of guitar. I mean, if that's just technical like nerd shit though, really. Like, if it strikes a chord as emo, I guess it is, you know? People call themselves goth now that are just like not goth, that are like, they are goth in the 2017, 2018, 2019 way, and that's just its own thing. It just means something different. So, like, I understand why people call my stuff emo. It's just, it's really way more influenced by like, grunge and like post-punk and post-hardcore bands like Unwound and Blonde Redhead and Sonic Youth. Way more of that is in my playing than any emo.
So I'm assuming you're not a big fan of the term emo rap.
I think it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, it's useful to people to categorize this new style, but I think people are just bored and lazy. Yeah. And, like, you know, I guess it is emo rap,
but it isn't.
But it's not really.
Yeah. So you were producing, you started with Neurotic kind of started producing, and then you did some work in 2015, but then in 2016, you told me you kind of focused more on visual art. What was it like to kind of take that break from music?
It was great. I had moved back to Seattle from Los Angeles to get my head cleared, and I've always been really interested in how the visual aspect of text and like fonts or signs. I studied that stuff in college. So I had this project where I was taking photos of signs everywhere I would go, and I used Photoshop to pull the text out of the sign, and I was arranging all the text in these banners. So it's like a bunch of different found signs, found words. I was interested in where like text becomes a visual object or something visual becomes legible, and I was trying to address that question. I was also like bottling up flower petals and sealing them and watching the pigment come out of the petals into the water. Interested in like when one object starts and becomes another object, or you know, boundaries of objects. And I felt like something about putting petals in water in a sealed container and watching the pigment come out and fill the water up while the skeleton of the flower is still there really resonated with me.
That's really wild.
It was really cool. I was still making beats, but they weren't really going out anywhere. At that time, I produced for MacNed, Goth Money, 100 Mil, Keith Jenkins from the Pack I worked with, but I was still making music then, but I was really focused on my visual art.
And what kind of brought you out of that period?
GBC was really like getting more serious, and I was trying to decide, did I want to stay in the group still, because it felt like it was going to get really serious. Peep had joined and stuff was taking off in LA. I wasn't there. But I love my friends, so I stayed, and it became clear that I could do something with my guitar playing, which I had done a little bit, but weirdly enough, I didn't really make guitar beats until 2016. I know that's probably surprising to some people, but I had certain phone calls with Horsehead, and eventually Peep and MacNed and Horsehead definitely encouraged me to keep working. But Peep eventually was just like, we need you and your guitar. You know, it's time I'm done paying royalty. I don't want to pay fees on these samples. That's when I started taking it more seriously.
And then did you go back to LA?
Early 2017, Peep had me come out to work with Smoke a Sack on what was going to be Come Over When You're Sober 1. Those sessions amounted to only one song, Lean In, and they took my playing off of it and replaced it. But that was when I first met Peep, or when I first really worked with him. I met him at a show with Fat Nick and Smoke Perp before. But
recently, you shared on Twitter that your project with Lil Peep, Goth Angel Sinner, is expected to be released in its original form. Can you just speak about the whole process? Because it was really kind of a controversial thing.
Mysterious too, even to me. But the root of that is that while Peep was still alive, his managers had me fly to London to work with George Estasio, who worked with Smoke a Sack on Come Over When You're Sober, to make new versions of the songs that were more polished and radio ready, which we did, and Peep didn't really like. He actually threw a tantrum when he heard them. He hated them. Because he had performed the original versions every night on tour. He was used to them and liked them that way. So there's been kind of a back and forth as to how the song should come out. And I think Come Over When You're Sober 2 was scheduled first, and that's needed to come out. So I don't know when the songs are coming out, but I believe personally that they'll come out in the original form because that's what people wanted. Didn't want the remixes.
And what was it like making that project together?
So beautiful. It was like, we were bonded before, but it was extremely bonding for us as individuals. He was with Gabe and the three at a studio, and they both were on shrooms, I guess. So he hit me up. He's like, "We're at a studio, bring beats," you know. I was like, "Oh, I wasn't doing anything. I didn't have any beats that I wanted to show them." So I was in my old shitty apartment in Los Angeles. I quickly recorded 3 stems of guitar, 9 stems, so 3 songs. Typically my beats will have 3 different layers of guitar, like a main backbone melody, some transitory effects, stuff like that, and then a melody to throw on the hook. So I recorded 3 songs worth in 20 minutes and whipped over to the studio, and they were tripping just balls. They were and I was sitting there making these beats, and they were crying because they liked how they sounded. Peep and Peep and Gabe were crying. They were like, "Oh my God, it sounds so beautiful." I was all gassed up, I was like, "Oh yeah," but they were bored and they were tripping. So every 20 minutes they're like, "Work on a new one, work on a new one." So I made these 3 beats 20 minutes at a time, but I finished all 3, and they were just when Peep, you could tell in Peep's eyes, he wanted those beats. So instead of recording that night, he waited because I don't know, because he waited, and that week we went to a studio in North Hollywood, and we tracked Belgium and Needle, and I think he also recorded Black Jeep with MacNed and Cold Heart that night. And Better Off Dead was engineering. I know engineers don't ever get shouted out, so I gotta shout him out because he recorded a lot of my music. He engineered that night too. And then we went back the next night, 2 nights later, and he did Moving On and another famous song. I can't remember what song it was, but all in the same week. And we drank Marley water. It was really fun.
Word.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that it's going to be released because there's so much back and forth.
Fingers crossed. Songs are incredible, and they really like absolutely changed my life and like made me take it even more seriously. Made me feel like they were an accomplishment for me. I was not making beats that good until I did, and after I made them, I was like, oh, I can be this good.
It was like a confidence booster.
Oh yeah, and like just like Peep and I getting, and from that stuff, that was how I ended up like Peep was inviting me to the sessions with McConan. I was making stuff for them. Like that beat you bought off me. That's mad funny.
Yeah.
I didn't make it then, but they used it.
That's so funny. Yeah. Elise.
Eliser.
In 2017.
Still leasing beats. Sad.
Are you gonna try to stop leasing beats?
Oh hell yeah! As soon as I can, as soon as I'm financially stable, I will not be leasing beats. It's a painful process.
Yeah, but a lot of emails.
People trying to cheap out when it's already too cheap.
Yeah.
Whew. Fingers crossed.
What's a typical studio session with you like, or is there a typical one?
I like to write the songs with the artists. I usually have an idea for a song in my head, so I help with melodies and sometimes lyrics, but lately it's been starting with, we have an intro and a first part, and then try to build a song with the artist from there. But I usually start with guitar or electric bass now, come up with a riff and then build from that. I'll sit down. Right now, Goa and I are working, and we'll start with almost a whole beat made, but kind of mutable. And he'll record up until there's no beat left, and then we'll decide, what's going to happen in the next part. Write that, maybe re-record guitars, retrack instruments and stuff, and then once the basic vocals are laid out, I'll retrack certain guitar or replay things so that they sound better, do rearrangements, maybe cut out certain elements or add new ones. I know maybe a lot of people do stuff like this, but every time you're working with me, we're working on the song together, and I'm writing the song with you, which is something I think maybe some artists would balk at that, but it's how I like to work. And if you want to work with me, it's kind of how it goes.
And you're writing lyrics and stuff because you do have that experience as a vocalist.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to release a vocal project?
Yeah, Jans and I are going to do something when he finishes up the Horsehead and Cold Heart albums. He's going to produce me a project, and we might end up playing some of those songs on tour, but we'll see. I'm really ready to start singing again. I just need the right producer, and I believe that's Jans.
Yeah, that would be fire. So last year in 2018 alone, if I did the math right, you released and produced 7 EPs.
A lot
of EPs. Some with Brennan and just like a ton, and with the Wicca one. And is there anything that's kind of consistent between all these projects, or is each one like a different experience?
They're all pretty different. Working with Brennan is usually like the same because we have a workflow together. But I've been trying to see how many different types of songs I can make using the guitar and the beats, and each project has a different vibe, I think. Right now I'm definitely moving more towards 80s post-punk and bedroom pop stuff, K-Records influence stuff too. You hear that on anything new that I'm doing now, but people probably won't hear that for a little while because there's always a delay in when you make stuff. But the common thread is definitely guitar, but I'm trying to use it in a lot of different ways. Like I've made beats where I'm not really even picking. I'll use harmonics or like noise from playing above the neck, or I don't know. If I make a synth beat, I'll throw a little guitar twinkle in or a pick scrape or something like that. Just always having that as my tool. It's how I speak.
The guitar. Awesome. There's been a lot of rumors about another full GVC project. Is there anything you can tell me about that?
No, I can't say nothing about it. Just keep your ears open. I can say that before that, you're gonna get full albums from lots of members, quality releases. Everything is building to that.
That's good to know.
We've been in the gym,
yeah.
sonically, and a lot of good music is gonna come out before that. But that's a distinct possibility in the future.
Very excited for that. And recently, to start off 2019, you released an EP with Doves.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Totally. I love Dove's music. I've always loved his production. His singing is rare. He just only has like less than 10 songs that I know of that are out. Maybe more than that if you count Dove's Cry, Springs Eternal. But I just made these really like light post-punk beats, and I was thinking he would be great for them, and he ended up picking 3 off the buck. So I was like, well, let's turn this into an EP. And it became what it is, I guess, which is originally we were going to do 5 songs, and we ended up doing 4. But it's really cool because they're fleshed out Dove songs and with really dynamic progressions.
Yeah, he really switches up vocal styles.
It's awesome. It's like some of his best work, I think.
Great way.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an awesome way to start the year. Especially because I hadn't had those songs for that long. I haven't been sitting on them. Some stuff I've been sitting on since the summer of 2018. Still isn't out, and I wish it was, but
cool.
Yeah. It was just awesome. Made it come out.
Good way to start the year. So you brought a special guest from Spain.
All the way from Madrid.
Who is it?
This is Goa, and off screen is Pochi from La Bendición Records in Madrid. And we have a album done, on the way, coming soon, and we're working on a second project right now.
So how did you guys connect?
We connected through Young Beef. He's a really big time independent rapper out in Spain who knew about GBC, and we were connected through Oraculo, the tattoo artist, international. He's like my friend Fish Narc, who's like just like us, like you should work with him. He already knew me, so he flew me out to Spain, and I ended up staying with Goa, and we made a whole album. There's a bunch of songs with Young Beef on it too, but it happened in November actually, so really recently.
And you're rapping and singing in Spanish.
Yeah, I sing in Spanish. I met Ben through Young Beef, and just as he said, we've been like one week, I think, or 2, right?
2 weeks in Spain.
2 weeks in Spain. And at first we thought that it was a good idea to work just on a few songs, but at the end we get an album.
A full
album.
It's called Secador de Almas.
Yeah, it's like Secador de Almas.
What's that shit mean?
Reaper of Souls.
Reaper of Souls?
Yeah, it is.
That's no joke, man.
No.
And how, I think it's really interesting that, you're singing and rapping in Spanish on what is, a sound that was pioneered in the States, and it's really just something that you haven't really seen before.
Yeah, I think it's just because my influences is more like American music and all the stuff. So I can blah blah blah, and I was working to sound like that. It doesn't mean the language, it's not important, but the sound of the words is important. So I was working on that.
We did some low-key, I think he's right, and the thing that makes that shit so effective, whereas it might have translation errors, is we worked on the cadences and how he was singing in Spanish, and together when we were writing the songs. Yo hablo español, and I could help with the lyrics and help with the arrangement.
Yeah.
So we were kind of talking back and forth, how are we going to make this comfortable for the English-speaking ear who doesn't necessarily understand Spanish. How is it going to fit the sound of the words? Make it so that, like he said, it doesn't matter what language you speak.
GothBoiClique is
it's
international. And you guys, GothBoiClique's playing a festival in Spain.
And that's a lot thanks to this man.
Are you going to be performing too?
Yeah, on the first day.
We performed the second day, but
yeah.
Primavera Sound.
And that's in May?
Yeah, it's May and the first day of June. The last week.
That's going to be wild.
It's going to be so crazy. 7 GBC members are coming. It's going to be myself, Dubs, Yawns, Horsehead, MacNed, and Cold Heart. And who am I forgetting? 6 members? 6 members.
Yeah. That's going to be
a pretty crazy lineup.
Yeah.
Trying to convince Tracy to come. He doesn't like to fly. But we're playing with this guy. And Young Beef time too.
Yeah, it's Young Beef.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, just
about Go.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
one more question for you.
Goa's got this album with Pochi called Hell Pop Star. It's out now that you guys should listen to. But keep an eye out for Secador de Almas. Just like we're finishing it right now.
Yeah.
We're already starting on our next album. It's even better, I think.
It's great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
What's the future of Fish Narc look like as we head into the new year?
New styles, kind of advancing the beat style into something more like perfectly original, like something that sounds more like me, less taking influence from the fact that I'm in GBC and I need to make this type of music. Not that I ever really felt like obliged to, but I was working at like honing a GBC sound that now I feel like we've all spoken our piece through. So kind of creating a more personal style. But I have done, mixed, waiting to come out. I have a collab EP with Booty Chain and Sick Boy Rari. This album with Goa, producer album that has every member of GBC except for JP Dream Thug and Peep on it. Brendan Savage, Booty Chain. I made a song with Joji last year that I want to put on it, but I have to get that cleared with him.
That's what's up.
It'd be really cool if he lets me put that out. But just tons of new music and touring. We're going to do a really interesting new touring setup that I can't really get to speak about yet, but live instruments and European tour, North American tour in the fall. It's a lot of stuff, but I'm going to try to hone the sound, get better, play live drums on my beats, If I'm playing live guitar, live bass, I might as well play live drums. It's my next step.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.